All right, guys that have been listening, got my buddy here, Jake Lawrence. He's live. He's in the flesh. There's no phone call. He's sitting next to me. And we're going to talk a little bit about what has Jake been doing the last couple months. And now it's almost spring. It's the 1st of February. And it's time for him to do some fishing. And hopefully I get to tag along. So Jake, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing the last couple months.
Man, I'm actually still in the process. Left just a few hours ago. Still packing everything up. I've been guiding duck hunting on Reelfoot Lake through Parker's Outfitting here for the last few months. And, man, I'm currently trying to kind of swap over from duck mode to fish mode. And I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. We had a fairly mild winter. It's great for the fishing. But, the duck hunting was fun. I enjoyed it, but I'm certainly looking forward to getting a little change of scenery.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not as hardcore duck hunter as you are, although we got several friends that are, like Monty Mack that went out with us there at Pickwick, and Ben Parker. And that is the same Ben Parker that invented the Magnum spoon.
That's right.
So what's kind of happened to Ben? Is he just kind of got out of the whole fishing deal, or is his duck business so good right now that it's basically dedicated to all year round operation?
He has. His operation has grown to the point that it is pretty well a full year round gig. He still fishes. He just kind of in the shadows, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He more on the fun side. But we still get out a few times a year, and of course we can't be out there and not compete with each other. But,
right.
But he does. He stays super busy. He's got 2 fantastic lodges, top quality there on the banks of Reelfoot, and of course super busy this time of year. You would think that area would be really dead after duck season, but crappie fishing is just right around the corner. In fact, as I was picking all of my decoys and all of my duck hunting equipment up, there were already guys pulling their campers in and getting things rolling. So it's always fun to see that transition so quickly on Reelfoot Lake and that surrounding area.
Yeah, Reelfoot's just a beautiful area. My family's from West Tennessee. They're Hall, so they always went and took trips to Reelfoot Lake when I was little. And the brim fishing was always good. The crappie fishing, when I was growing up, was hit or miss. But I'd always heard stories of guys catching some really good ones there. So if you get a chance, head down to Reelfoot Lake. And I know Ben also does bow fishing trips.
He does. That's a really, really fun time. Get all the guys together and have a good time. Generally about a half a night kind of deal. Mm-hmm. And man, it's awesome. I enjoy doing that.
I went with Ben one time last year, and you think, Reelfoot Lake, it's got all this timber and cypress knees, and the water's a little tannic color. Man, at night, and this time of year, it was in March, when it's cool, that water's really clear, and you can see a lot of crazy stuff.
You can. In fact, they did a trip 2 or 3 nights ago and had a fantastic time. They caught several 40-pound grass carp.
Wow.
They had a really good trip.
Well, it starts a new year here on Kentucky Lake, and, we've had the carp deal. Matter of fact, they've got a couple bays here on the north end close to me closed. They're doing the new netting. I forgot. I think it's universal netting or something like that. If I misspoke, caught it the wrong thing, I'm sorry. But they're trying to do a new netting on the Asian carp. But what are you expecting to see out of the lakes this year, Kentucky, Barkley Lake? We've had a pretty low fishing pressure year. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a lot of big classics that come in the fall. Didn't really happen. The wild card was here, low boat count.
Yep.
The weather, it's been raining a lot, so those guys that would normally go out all the time throwing an A-rig are sitting in the house. So what do you kind of expect to see out Kentucky Lake this spring?
I'm really looking forward, and to be honest with you, I was really excited by a few things that I saw throughout the season. Several different circumstances kind of lined up for us to be excited, or at least for me to be excited in the future. Of course, I have not been on the lake yet this year. I'm still packing everything up, and we'll probably make a trip out next week. So I have not seen the lake in 3 months. Be honest with you, in the wintertime, I enjoy totally getting away from the fishing scene.
Right.
It's all I talk about. It's all I do 24/7, February through November. So I've kind of been out of the game. I haven't, out of the loop. Haven't heard anybody really talking much about it. But I'm looking forward. Last year we had several things. One, and most importantly to me, is we had a really good spawn. I saw a lot of little bitty fry. Baxter and I guess that was in late was that in August that we had a trip?
It was late July.
Yeah.
And we've seen a ton of 6 to 8 inch bass and 4 inch bass in the back of those creeks.
We were really, really impressed with what we saw. And we've got a new shiner, and I'm sure Menendez and the Baitman will know a lot more about it than what I do, but we've got a new shiner in the lake that I shouldn't say, correct myself, it's not new, it's just it has not been a factor.
Right.
The lack of thread fin, and I think there's a lack of gizzards from what I'm seeing out there, or not seeing rather. But the shiner is a totally different animal altogether, and a lot of these bass change what they've always done, or at least since I've been fishing Kentucky Lake, they've always kind of done certain things. It's just about May, you can guarantee they're going to go offshore. In the late summer, they're going to move back up, shallower bars, things like that. Last year to me was totally different in the sense that the bass acted completely away from their normal pattern. So I enjoy that. A lot of people get discouraged, and I know a lot of guys that have quit fishing,
right?
At least temporarily.
Been a lot of boats sold around here.
It has. But to me, I enjoy that. I get more enjoyment out of understanding the bass, why, what, when, where kind of thing than I do actually reeling them in. I enjoy that. Don't want to take anything away from it, but I enjoy the mental aspect, kind of the chase or the hunt, so to speak. And so for them to do something different gives me an opportunity to kind of exploit that and learn something new. So I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think what you're excited about is the same reason the guys in that chase those trophy bass, the Swimbait community. I'm always talking about the Swimbait community, but those guys have a different mental mindset, and they enjoy throwing these big oversized baits or even micro baits or different style baits than the average angler would be comfortable with.
Yep.
Because they're trying to figure something different out. But they're not trying to catch limits as, hey, I want to try this and see if I can't get a DD on it.
Yep.
I've yet to catch a double-digit bass. I'm hoping this year maybe me and you can go to a couple new lakes, and maybe we hit Pickwick at the right time, and we can catch one.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, since you haven't been on the water, and a lot of people listening here, they may not come fish Kentucky Lake, but spring is pretty much spring unless you live up north. I'm sorry,
Correct.
You're going to have ice everywhere, but you see the West Coast, Clear Lake and all that. I've seen guys on Facebook. It's pre-spawn there. Florida's different pre-spawn. If you haven't been on the water, you've got to assemble 5 rods and reels, Jake. Well, what's some stuff that guys can have confidence in throwing right now?
My 5 baits right off the top, pretty straightforward. It's funny, you look at year to year, I guarantee you the first time I go fishing, I've got at least 7 or 8 of, it's 5 specific things, but I've got some variations, and one's going to be a DT6.
Trusty.
Old Trusty. You absolutely cannot go wrong with a DT6. Demon color, hot mustard, that all just kind of depends on the conditions and the water color, things like that. So DT6, a rattle trap, although I will admit that I've probably caught fewer bass on a rattle trap in the last 2 years on Kentucky Lake than you could even believe. I can't get a bite on it. But I promise you I'm going to have one tied up.
Right.
It's just, I know you crushed them. I watched a couple videos of you crushing them last February, March, I guess.
I have done very good on the 6-cent Quake 70.
Yep.
And I still throw a regular Bill Lewis quite a bit.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. I really like that thud.
Yes, that's a good bait.
It is. It's to me, it's kind of a niche. I've got a certain little place for it, but I really enjoy throwing that thud. So we've got a DT6, a rattle trap. I'm always going to have half to 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, big willow leafs, number 6, 7. And then I'll be honest with you, something that I really kind of got into last year more than I ever have is kind of on the finesse side.
Right.
And I saw that for various reasons really come into play last year on Kentucky Lake and really everywhere I fished. So I would probably have a Ned and a Nico rig tied on, which a lot of the guys that know me and fish with me are probably giggling right now because that is not my deal. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form against going small or finesse. It's just I like to cover water.
Right.
I'm not really a dragger. but I've kind of grown onto it, to some degree, and certainly had a lot of success on it last year.
Sure, I was just watching Tactical Bassing this morning. I always watch Matt Tim's stuff, and Matt's talking about his best baits for spring, and you're kind of lining up on some stuff. But he talked about this isn't the time of year where he slows down and finesses them. Maybe after he's already found a bunch of fish.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to get to. What I'm looking for, and really this is not just limited to the wintertime or early spring. This is year round. I'm going to have several baits that I can cover water with, and then I'm also going to have several baits that kind of a cleanup, so to speak. Once I breeze through an area and say I'm fishing a little channel swing bank and I crank through there and I get 3 bites, I'm not going to run to the next one until I turn back around and make another pass with, it might be a jig, might be a Nico or a Ned or whatever it may be, but I'm going to give those fish that might not be as aggressive a second opportunity to show themselves before I get out of the area. Honestly, and we've talked about this a couple times, that's something that I always struggle with, is I'm always that guy, the grass is greener on the other side. If I got 3 5-pound bites on this channel swing, well, there ought to be 4 on the next one. And really in the last 2 years, I've kind of gotten to where, okay, when you find a group of fish, you need to catch them and then go find you something else. I've gotten burned so many times, gotten so close to winning some tournaments. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20, but you could, it's so interesting to look back and say, man, if I would have just stayed there another 30 minutes, wasted 3 hours looking for something. In another 30 minutes, I could have.
What the old timers always say: don't leave fish to find fish.
To find fish. I'm the world's worst at it, but I'm getting better.
Now, there's obviously you can just milk an area dry.
You can absolutely.
It's funny you brought up the spinnerbait because I put up a post on Instagram of my favorite spinnerbaits, and I feel like the bladed jig almost took place the spinnerbait. The jackhammer, thunder cricket, shock blade, that the whole chatterbait deal in the spring in the last 6 or 7 years has just blown up. I knew at one time there was a few guys throwing it, but not a whole lot. And since we really don't have grass, you would think guys wouldn't throw it that much. But man, it's the guys that used to buy spinnerbaits now buy bladed jigs.
Yep.
But there's always a place in my box for that spinnerbait. Now I feel you get a lot bigger bites on a spinnerbait. Now you may not get the numbers. Correct. But I've caught some really big fish in spring on spinnerbait.
Yep, I have too. And I'll be honest with you, the majority of the year, I'm going to have a chatterbait tied on or a bladed jig of some, some kind. For whatever reason, in the early spring, from the time that I start fishing, which is usually about middle of February, it's always, based on weather. But from February to, say, the 1st of May, I lean more on a spinnerbait. And then it seems like kind of after, once they get into the spawning mode, then I'm more onto the bladed jig. So I think a lot of that has to do with a confidence thing. I know one thing, especially really early in, what I would consider a late winter, which is something I want us to get into, kind of seasonal things here in a little bit. But what I would consider late winter, the biggest reason that I like a spinnerbait over a bladed jig is that the bladed jig, the way it's designed, it wants to ride up. And this time of year, I'm guessing the water's anywhere from the low 40s to high 40s. I want that bait to stay down in the water column. These fish primarily aren't going to be up super, super shallow. And we're almost always related close to deep water this time of year. So that big willow leaf blade, although it's a big blade and got a lot of vibration to it, it doesn't have a lot of lift. Right. So I can slow roll and almost kind of drag that thing, which is how I fish it a lot. It's totally different than what you would expect a spinnerbait bite to really be.
Yeah, I've always said if you could just give me one bait to throw, I love a spinnerbait. When I grew up fishing Kentucky Lake, before I knew what a ledge was and all this stuff, I throw a spinnerbait in the summer. I learned to fish it around laydowns, around boat docks. I figured out blade combinations. I fished at night a lot. And to be honest with you, I was pretty successful. Now, could I go out and win a lot of tournaments doing it? No, but I could go catch 20 fish in the middle of August throwing a spinnerbait around shallow stumps and in the backs of the bays and the creeks, just in that cooler water, and catch a lot of fish. But I learned a lot about blade combinations and when to go gold and when to go silver and all that stuff. And it's an art form. It's just like swimbait fishing. Not one swimbait will do everything. You kind of got to have a big combination. I just put together a Bass Mafia blade coffin, and I found at my dad's a whole Ziploc bag of orange chartreuse and white willows and Colorado kicker blades, and I don't know where he got it, and it's full of them. And I need to grab that from him because I've got some stuff I really want to play with.
Yep. The painted blade things really kind of come on. You know, that was actually something that took place before, or I wouldn't say before our time, but we were really little. I mean, that's the painted blade thing's been going on forever, since I guess the early 80s probably.
And even, the old timers will say bubblegum spinnerbaits.
Yep, you're exactly right. The pink and the chartreuse, not together necessarily, but I like the chartreuse bladed spinnerbait.
Right.
I throw that a lot. It's a very condition-oriented bait. It's one of those, it seems like they're either really going to bite it, like way better than anything else, or they're not going to touch it at all. But the painted blades, it's kind of regained its popularity. I think some of those Oklahoma and kind of central, some of the northern Texas lakes, those real muddy lakes, the kicker blade or the painted kicker blades is really...
Yeah, Jason Christie kind of brought that back to life. The real one, the good one, the fishing's MLF. But and I'll credit Brooks over at Nichols.
Yep.
He's really made a big effort on his blades. Brooks makes a great spinnerbait. He makes good everything.
And I tell you, the painted blade that's a really tricky deal, which, again, everybody's probably smirking at this, but I am so over anal about everything. Even the Baitman kind of makes fun of me about it. But you can't just paint a blade and throw it on a spinnerbait and roll with it. It's very particular. I don't know if it's, I'm not big into it, but I don't know if it's the thickness of the paint or the consistency or how the water rolls around it, whatever the case may be. There are certain painted blades that are absolutely better than others.
Yeah.
And Brooks does make a good one. He's got one that it's almost like a dip. It's not a paint. I don't know what exactly that is, but man, I really like it. It's a good one as well. Yeah,
I think Omega Custom Tackle, they make the Genesis TI where it's got a quick change on it, so you can easily change out the blade on the clevis. They make kicker blades. One of my favorites is Spot Sticker. You know, he makes the Mini Me. I know you've seen that, but Ryan Coleman told me he has some white blades and has some small little purplish tips on them. And I said, Ryan, you know, what's the deal here? You know, I love purple, but there's got to be a reason. And he told me when you're burning that Mini Me on Lake Lanier, because when you put the tip on that colored blade, it almost makes the illusion that there's double the amount of bait fish there than what that spinnerbaits represent.
Yeah, I can see that.
So those are some guys definitely check out. I think Ryan Coleman will have a booth at the Classic. You know, I know the guys at Omega very well. They got a website. And Brooks, you follow him on the Nichols Instagram. He's got some killer stuff. I mean, you know, colored spoons.
Oh, he's got it all. Yep.
He's got another little bait, and this is totally off subject, but this is Baitman Raw, so we can get random. It's called the Nichols Trailblazer. I don't own any. I don't know if you've seen this. It's kind of like a cross between a grub and a packer crawl. Like instead of like crawls.
So it's a soft plastic.
It's a soft plastic, and it looks really good on the back of his swim jigs and football jigs. It's definitely a hybrid bait.
Interesting. I'll check that out.
You can tell he's been in duck blind.
I have.
He's already been to my garage. Like, man, I haven't seen any new baits.
I started drooling. Man, I'm all over it. I'm telling you. It's funny, you know, by about September, I'm getting, I wouldn't say burned out, but I'm kind of ready for a change. You know, I need a break. And by the middle of December, I am fired up, ready to get back at it, chomping at the bit. So about the time I get ready for a change, you know, I'll switch into duck mode, and then not very soon after it will switch back into fish mode. Well,
since we're in fish mode, let's get back on the late winter, early spring deal. We've talked about some baits, but you said something earlier about channel swings, and it's funny. A friend of mine said, "Man, Baitman, you need to do a video." And I don't know if you got anyone that can help you out, but I hear these pros and guys always talk about channel swing, and when I look at a map or my depth finder, I really don't know what they're really talking about. Without any illustration, because this is a podcast, kind of describe what a channel swing really is.
Okay, so where we need to start with this is actually, I'm sure most of you have looked at a map of some sort. A topographic map, what that gives you the availability to do is to differentiate the lake levels there, or the depth rather. So each line represents a certain depth or a contour change. So the tighter that these lines are together, the steeper the break, and the more spread out they are, the more gradual this break is. So once you know and have this piece of information and are familiarized with what you're looking at, a channel swing is simply anywhere that the deep water or this contour line runs into the bank, becoming much steeper than what it has prior, and almost always will eventually leave the bank, and that contour line will follow out into the lake somewhere, leaving much shallower area behind it. So you've got this little, it could be 10 yards, it could be 10 miles, it's all relevant to the area, but the general census is where you've got deep water that runs up close or touching the bank. And it's a big concentration, an area where a big concentration of fish is going to stage. To be honest with you, probably, I would say 70% of what I catch in the pre-spawn and late winter is related to some sort of channel swing. It
Right.
could be a main lake, it could be the main river swinging up, or the main river channel swinging up on the main lake bank. It doesn't necessarily have to be a creek channel in the very back of a bay somewhere.
It's just basically an easy point for fish to move up and down the water column, whether to feed or suspend or whatnot.
Correct. So to me, the most important thing to understand in the winter, or any time that the fish are lethargic and cold natured, so to speak, is fish don't want to move horizontally. Obviously metabolism slow, they slow way down. They're not really in the mood to go swim halfway across this bay to get whatever they want. They want to find an area that they've got everything they need right there within a small little area. Again, if you're on a lake like Reelfoot, where everything's silted in and it's real shallow and flat, they might have to go a little further. But on TVA lakes and most lakes out there, you've got everything they need in a really small area. And what I'm looking for is an area that's got deep water access. That's first and foremost. Anytime that it's going to get really cold, obviously the bottom half of the water column is going to be much warmer than the top half, in a cold front situation. But the biggest deal is they want to be able to move up and down, not horizontally.
Right.
So, in other words, they don't want to be way up on this big flat where they've got to swim 500 yards to get to a drop-off to deep water. They would rather live on, like, a place we're talking, a channel swing where if it warms up for 2 or 3 days like we just had, they can slide up there in 2 or 3 feet of water, because again, on a warming trend, the top 2 or 3, 4 feet of the water column is going to be the warmest. So they've got everything they need in a small little area. And once you find that, it's pretty patternable, and there's generally a big concentration of fish in that area. That's the one hard thing about the winter is they seem to be concentrated. It can be really good when you land on it, but it can be frustrating and almost feel like there's not a bass in this lake left.
Yeah, and I don't want people to get confused fishing a channel swing versus fishing a spawning staging area, which I would consider a lot shallower, closer to a flat near the back of a bay, or even I call pockets on the main lake. I feel some of the bigger fish, they go to those pockets on the main lake quicker than the back of the bay, just simply because, again, closer to deep water, those bigger fish can just slide up there. And I think some of those big fish spawn a little bit earlier.
There's no credit, no question whatsoever. We don't give them enough credit. Mother Nature will not allow anything in nature to spawn or reproduce all at one time, because if something was to happen during that period of time, it would totally wipe that generation out.
Right.
So I thoroughly believe, and I'm no biologist, and certainly can only refer back to my experiences on the water and in the outdoors, but I really feel like, and it only makes sense in my mind, that the larger, more mature females, their eggs are going to form and process, I guess, for lack of a better term, much earlier and they can withstand a little cooler water temperature. I do think it's a big misconception, though, and I want to bring this up, that in the early spring, and I'm talking February and March, and even the first part of April, again, it's all depending on where you're located. But in this area, we're talking, pre-spawn. Anytime, it's funny. Of course, I get phone calls every day about all sorts of experiences that somebody's had, questions, things like that. The most common comment, I guess, that I get is they saw a fish up shallow, saying less than 3 feet of water, and they just automatically assume that it's up there to spawn.
Right.
And I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm not saying that some don't spawn early, because I do. I think a lot of the bigger ones do. But just because you see a fish up in, say, less than 5 feet of water doesn't mean it's just up there to spawn. I could be totally wrong.
I will actually agree with you. You don't know how many fish. You talk about that, me catching them on a rattle trap. So here's the deal. Last year and the year before, I was catching a lot of fish on a rattle trap in 2 foot of water, and they weren't spawning fish.
No, absolutely.
They were up there eating.
Yep.
And the water was dirty, but it was warm.
Yep, exactly.
And so a lot of the places we would catch those fish on a trap, you'd snag a gizzard shad.
Yep.
And that just tells me right there that's the only reason those fish were up there. They wanted to feed. And it wasn't like us catching them every cast. But there's a couple places, if I beat it hard enough, I was going to catch me 4 or 5.
Yep. It's funny, and I won't take up too much time on this, but to kind of back that up, what you're talking about.
You take all the time you want, Jay.
I was on the phone with Ed Geddes, good friend of mine. I don't know.
Great fisherman.
Yeah, very, very good. Top quality. He's actually kind of gotten to be somewhat of a mentor. I love talking fishing with somebody that's into it as much as he is. Man, he can sit there for days and talk about it. But it's fun. We learn a lot from each other, and we were talking on the way up just a little bit ago, and he was telling me a story. He's got all these great stories from back in the day, and this one wasn't all that long ago, but on a lake, TVA lake, very early. He didn't tell me exactly, but I'm guessing February. There was ice still in the bays, and they were catching them, and I mean catching them, 20, 25-pound bags, 10, 15 people at a time back in this one area. And what it was, they'd had a really, really warm winter, much like we have this year, and we had a major cold front that came in, and basically what had happened is over the winter, again with these warming trends, all the whether they're gizzards or thread fins, whatever their food source, a bass's food source was, had pushed into these bays because of that warm, shallow water. And when that cold front hit, it's like it stunted them, and they couldn't get out. It was a real shallow, I'm not going to disclose the place, but a big bay that's just full of 3, 4, 5 feet of water. And for about a week or 10 days, it was just some of the most incredible rattle trap and spinnerbait fishing. And it's all in like 2 or 3 feet of water. And they were throwing to the edge of ice and catching them so shallow that you could watch them pull up. I mean, it's just, fish are going to follow their food source. I don't care what time of year it is or where they are, in the lake. You see situations like that. Now, that's not something that happens every spring. That's a situational kind of, deal. But I feel like we all get too close-minded as fishermen. And the one, and I don't want this to sound negative or bashing anybody, because I'm not at all, but with the advent of, or the popularity of YouTube and everybody posting all these videos, we all kind of have the same general outline or description of what bass should do. And I feel like we get way too close-minded and stuck in the last 30 people I've watched videos have all said this same exact, whatever the case may be. I really try to look at it as kind of outside the box and, as much as I can, kind of keep myself out of that, even though I'm all in the middle of the industry and things are happening. I try to, for my own personal fishing, I try to keep myself away from getting stuck in a rut and saying the fish are supposed to be on a channel swing. Well, they are, but if I ain't got a bite in 2 hours, I'm not going to keep running channel swings.
We ain't stupid. Now, I have been very stupid out there fishing, but you make a good point. And it's funny, you walked in my house there and you're like, oh, yeah, I just watched this Iconel and Swindle. They caught them pretty good, and I've only like 2 minutes in, so he kind of ruined it for me. But that's what I do. I watch this, but it's very easy to get caught up in that YouTube. I don't want to say hype, but if all these guys are saying throw this, throw this, throw this, and you go out there and as great a fisherman as Matt Allen is, and some of these other guys on YouTube, Mikey Balls, I love Mikey too, and you're trying to replicate, the conditions seem to be the same, and you're not getting a bite, there's nothing wrong with trying to do your own thing and going, they're just not on this. Maybe it's time I'd try some bluff walls or something like that. And sometimes you find a pattern out there that you normally wouldn't try just by trying to fish your way instead of fish this guy or what that guy.
Absolutely.
I tell guys all the time, I'm not a great fisherman, but by gosh, you can put a bait in front of me, and I can tell you all the internals about it and how it works.
Exactly. And by no means am I bashing anyone or speaking negatively. In fact, I think this is the best thing that could have happened for the fishing industry. Here in the last 5 years, this has gained so much popularity, and it's opened up so many avenues for you see these young fishermen, even in middle school and high school. I was fairly advanced for my age, but it's amazing.
Dude, it's just crazy
how much they know and how much further along they are than I was at that time. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form speaking negatively. I'm just bringing the point kind of to a head that just because this is what they're supposed to be doing, and every bass magazine we've ever watched or read, and every YouTube video we've watched says this, you kind of need to make sure for yourself and kind of do your own thing and make your best assessment of that particular day.
That's why it makes it hard for me to go fishing with someone. Jake or my partner, someone calls me. They call me the Baitman for a reason. It's not just because I know a lot about baits. It's usually by the amount of freaking tackle I bring. Because I'm afraid I'm going to leave that one bait or one technique at home and be like, I really could have used, a Nico rig today, and I didn't have it.
I do lose 2 or 3 miles an hour every time you get in my boat. And I don't think it's you. You're not a very big fella.
No, I've lost a bunch of weight, which I'm proud of.
Yep, you look good.
And but saying that, I've been thinking about a lot as far as my fishing too, is keeping it simple. It's springtime. There's no need to have this crazy amount of stuff I want to take. Take me a box with variation of lipless, some square bills and DT6s and rock crawlers, and a few jigs, bladed jigs and spinnerbaits, and that's all a man needs. You don't have to have all these crazy colors, and trust me, I like all these crazy colors that 6 Cents and other people put out, but in the day, it's spring. A red, a variation of yellow, and that's about all you need.
Yep, absolutely.
Same on your square bills, and guys like, man, I couldn't find no Rapala DTs and hot mustard. I'm like, well, they make parrot chartreuse blue back.
Yep.
I don't think they're keying on the color of the back as so much they're keying on is just that chartreuse.
Exactly, that flash.
And me, I love chartreuse purple. It catches them, but at the end of the day, they really just like the chartreuse.
Yep.
I like the purple, and I think at times, though, it makes that bait gray and that kind of not really clear, not really dirty water, and it kind of gets more of a shad imitator.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my theory. That's not proven.
Yep. I'll tell you, it's interesting, and I wouldn't advise this to everybody, but something I've kind of had fun with is with my business, of course, a lot of the times I'm in the customer's boat. So I don't want to bring a tremendous amount of stuff. In fact, a lot of times, fishing's kind of on the back burner. We're more interested in learning a particular thing, whatever that may be. But I'm always going to bring a rod and a few baits with me. And I use just a standard, I guess that's the 2-gallon
just a Bass money bag.
And I can fill that thing about half full and it do exactly what you said. I've got 2 spinner baits, I've got a couple rattle traps, a couple square bills, whatever I need, and that's what I take. And it'll make you, you're forced to make it happen with that. I mean, I've got all this stress and all this pressure. I've got to catch them. And here I am, I've got like 10 baits with me. It's you better make it happen. And some days I do, and some days, I wish I had a few more things in my box. But
guys, I see this posted on the forums, on Swimbait Universe, new to swim baits. What are some baits to start out with? And guys are wanting to get into gang crafts and all this crazy expensive stuff. When I learned to swim bait fish, it obviously didn't have access to that stuff now, but I basically went out there with 3 rods with 3 bass tricks tied on.
Yep.
And knowing the fish, it was late May, you could catch one on a cigarette if you wanted to. And I forced myself to learn to swim bait, catch them.
Yep.
Now, does that mean I was doing it right? No, but it gave me the confidence when I finally hooked up. Okay, go bite this thing, and then I started figuring out retrieve and playing with heads, and swim baits have really evolved now. I mean, the Bass Tricks, that's always going to be the OG, the original swim bait to me. And actually, I call all that storm walleye shiner.
I did, I still do occasionally. You'd be surprised. They haven't quit biting that. People just quit throwing it. I've had some really good days on that.
Yeah, and that brings me to this. Social media has changed things, and I love social media. Sometimes I say things that probably shouldn't on there, but as far as baits wise, you have access. You can get on Instagram and you can hashtag Swimbait or hashtag Spinnerbait, and there will be tons of options you have never seen in your life before.
Yep.
And you'll go, holy smokes! But there's a lot of baits that we just forget about. And, I talk about lipless and I talk about the original rattle trap. I throw them all the time. It's amazing how many people won't even mention rattle trap. It's red eye shad, it's a yozuri, it's a jackal, or, 6 cents, and nothing against those. Those all catch fish. But that regular rattle trap still catches.
I guarantee you a chrome and blue Bill Lewis rattle trap's caught more than you can put in this house. I mean, there's no question. And it will forever and ever. That'll never change. They'll always bite.
Now, since you have been kind of in the woods, we've had a lot of technology advances out here.
We have.
We've got a trolling motor from Lowrance. We've got one from Garmin. We've got the Lowrance Live View and the Garmin Live Scope, which I think you might have played with a little bit.
I have. We've also got the Humminbird 360 Mega coming.
You're a Humminbird guy, right?
Yeah, but I don't like to necessarily.
Or would that be your preference at the moment?
Right. I have no affiliation with Humminbird. I'll be honest. I follow wherever the technology is at the moment. Side imaging right now seems to still be on the Humminbird side, but there's a lot of cool things that are coming our way, and I expect things to really get interesting in the next few years. I'm looking forward to seeing where this technology, at some point you think we've got to draw the line. Like, where does this get to be just too much?
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be, something that sounds very negative. I don't mean that at all, but it's just amazing. It's like, how can we get any further along than where we are?
And on that, also, Jake, don't want it to get into who has the biggest pocketbook to put all this stuff on their boat.
Right. And the important thing for everyone to understand, and I still have to kind of pinch myself every now and then, you don't have to have this stuff. I mean, no. I make a living on it, but I enjoy going to Reelfoot in my father's 18-foot John boat and flipping a black and blue jig by a cypress tree all day long and get a handful of bites. That's a ball to me. You don't need a depth finder. You need a trolling motor and a 12, 14-foot aluminum boat and a flipping stick. That's what you need.
Yeah, you don't want to take fiberglass to
No.
I do not advise that.
Not a good idea. But you can do the very same thing on a lot of lakes. I mean, you don't have to have this. It, it certainly does give you an advantage in certain situations. The Garmin Live Scope, the Panoptics is really taken a hold here in the last year or so, and I honestly expect a lot of my business this year to be involved with the Garmin Live Scope. That's really taken off.
I think we might have to get you on Lake X for some training.
Absolutely.
I've been on Lake X with the Garmin.
Oh, I bet
and I've seen them eat a swim bait. It's
I bet it's
impressive.
I've seen enough on the electronics on Lake X I can only imagine.
So I'm going to drop this on you. I don't know if anybody knows this or if I'm supposed to say anything, and I really don't care because I'm not affiliated with them. I don't own a boat, but Power Pole is coming out with a trolling motor too.
They are. Yep.
I think, and people may know that, but what's really impressive, they're coming out with a battery charger, and it will charge all your batteries, even charge your lithium batteries that everybody's gone to, and it can fully charge them in like 2 hours. And as you're fishing and running down the lake or on the trolling motor, it will charge as well.
Yep.
It's going to be expensive. It's going to be like over $1,000, but it's not going. It's going to have sensors in them so they can't overheat or get too much charge. That's for guys that are already spending $700-800 on trauma motor batteries,
Yep.
and with all our electronics that are pulling so many amps, that's a big deal.
It is, absolutely is. I deal with that on a daily basis. I mean, it's since we've been here, I've gotten 2 texts and 1 phone call, and I guarantee you, out of those 3, one of them is an electronic issue that involves either not having a big enough battery or not having enough big enough gauge wire to sustain all of the power that's needed there.
Do you remember back in like high school, and you may not have done this, I might be a little older than you, but it was cool to have like a system in your truck.
Oh, absolutely.
And the biggest difference between a guy that would buy a couple 12s and speaker boxes and an amp, and the other guy that bought similar stuff, but he had cheaper wire, cheaper amp, the audio clarity was way different. And of course, I had one in my truck, and my dad, being an electrician, he knew how to get the most. I had good stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to pay that much because I had the right wiring, right amp, versus someone that spent $1,000 on all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I just can't get no noise out of it.
Yep.
And that makes a huge difference on your electronics.
It does, absolutely. I see probably 60% of the boats that I get in, might be a little more than that. You could get a better image by making a few small modifications, and we might, if some guys show some interest in that, we might have we'll get together and we'll do a video on that. And that's getting to be a big issue, and I anticipate in the years to come, very shortly, a lot of these manufacturers are going to catch on.
Right.
I can't believe they haven't already, and start doing this from the factory. But a lot of the guys that already have boats, or maybe an older model, these are all little easy things to do. It's not very difficult at all, but makes a tremendous difference in the picture, and really just the ease of using the unit or any piece of technology.
And I'll say it, I get these comments on my Vexus videos and everything, and I agree with it. For the price you're going to pay for a brand new bass boat now, you really shouldn't have to do all that stuff. If you're ordering a brand new Vexus with all this, touch 12s and whatever, that's the best time to get that stuff. Don't pay that much for a boat, then wait 6 months later and then go shell out more money to fix those issues. Get it done at ground zero.
Yep, I've sold for 2 or 3 years, worked in the dealership and sold boats, and almost every time it works out better. If you're gonna order one, just to order what you want from the get go. It's gonna be cheaper from the manufacturer. It's frustrating to some degree why they don't already have some of that stuff involved in it, but I don't. I'm very rarely have I ever seen it come out better for the customer on the back end, so to speak. So
yeah, there's lots of good mounts out there too. People ask me. Jake's obviously in a lot of boats. You got Bass Boat Technologies, Precision Sonar, and there's like Bass Boat Electronics. Everyone's got their own mount and stuff, and it doesn't matter if you got an 84 Astro or a brand new, V21 Vexus. Someone can make a mount out there for you.
Yep, you're exactly right. And not every boat or not every mount's gonna fit correctly. So I've seen all sorts. I've seen a lot of homemade rigs that were pretty dang cool. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there. They're getting on that side of it. It's getting a little more reasonable. Price wise, you can get them for $100 to $250 depending on what you need. So I honestly here recently have gotten kind of away from the ram mount side of things. Again, there's a lot of boats out there that still require that, and that's just the best way to rig it. But if I can get it there, behind the console, that's where I'd prefer it. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Well, so you talk about electronics, Jake. You prefer to be in a customer's boat, or I won't just say customer, but you prefer your training to be done in the trainees.
I do. Each unit is it's like anything else. It's not going to be exact. If we go in mine, the most of the settings are going to be fairly similar, but depending on how much power, again, going back to how this was all rigged and put together, depending on how much power that unit is getting will change the settings that must be made there. And also, you just get down to the simple fact of you're going to be much more comfortable in your boat using your equipment. Once I leave and you go back out by yourself, there's not this question of, well, I know his unit shows them, but does mine not? Or there's no question there. You're comfortable. You're used to fishing out of your boat, and we get to see what we're looking for, whatever the target species may be. We're getting to look at them in your boat, on your unit. It's just an easier way of getting you to where you want to be.
When's the best time to really start learning your electronics? I've heard both ways. Some guys say, well, the best time is to wait till they're out deep. And then, a friend of mine, Brandon Hunter, he's a good guy. He says he actually prefers, the late winter and stuff like that, where those fish are hugged on the bottom. But you see a variety of different fish, and they're spread out. They're not all grouped together where you can say, well, these are definitely crappie. This is what whites look like, and these are bass.
Yeah. So, the way that I build my trips, is kind of tailor-made for the customer. I found that everyone is kind of at a different place with this. Some guys don't know the power button. Some guys have got, several hundred hours behind them. They just need a little boost. So I kind of tailor-make every trip for the individual, but a kind of a broad sense of what I like to do is not necessarily so much worry about the target species in the beginning as let's just get a good understanding. First and foremost, let's get you to where you can operate the unit. Once we kind of move past that and you get fairly comfortable with it, let's go learn the generalized basics of side and down imaging 2D sonar. I don't like jumping straight into, 15 minutes into our trip and we're looking at a school bass or a school crappie or whatever it may be. It's kind of almost like information overload. So I like to do, and a lot of times I'll do a trip where, and it may even be just a half day, where we go out, get a very broad sense of what this unit is capable of. We're going to learn how to operate it, what things look like, hard bottom, soft bottom, logs, stumps, pieces of cover. And then we kind of, we've got a good understanding. I give you the time to go out by yourself and kind of learn it on your own. You'll develop some more questions, and then we'll go out, and I like to reschedule another trip when they are out very good. And I'll be honest with you, I consider them electronics, training, so to speak, but it's really a ledge fishing trip. I mean, you went with Monty and I, and we talked about everything involved in offshore ledge fishing. So it's not just your electronics. Again, if that's what you're into, that's all you want to know about, that's what we'll talk about. But a lot of the trips, we kind of knock out the electronic side of it, and then by late afternoon, we go have fun, catch a few bass. So.
And to me, as someone, if I was going to pay a guy some money to do that, I would definitely want to do some fishing, because I can go out there and grab some carp and tell you those are bass and take you $200 pretty quick or whatnot.
Exactly. But, and I'll be honest with you, 6 or 7 years ago, the hard part was finding them and knowing that those were bass. Now, the hard part is getting them to bite. Just because those are bass doesn't mean you can. There were several schools that we stopped on last summer at Pickwick that, my goodness, one of them had, who knows? I
bet there's 1,500 bass.
Yeah, I was going to say 2,000 bass in it. I mean, it was just.
I think we caught one.
Crazy. Yeah, we caught one about 10 inches long. So just because you find them and that's what that is doesn't necessarily mean you're Van Damme now. So
yeah, I mean,
there's a lot to it. These fish have gotten educated. It's very much like deer hunting or turkey hunting or anything else. When these animals start feeling that pressure, they'll adapt and they'll change.
Remember when the Mojo duck first come out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Every mallard within a mile, if he's seen them wings, it was coming. Now,
it's just like a rig. I mean, same thing. You
look at some of the stuff Ben's done. I cannot talk about. It's legal. But as far as inventions he's made,
oh my goodness,
he'll say, Baxter, don't film that. I don't want people to see that. I mean,
we've came
a long ways, but that's because animals adapt.
Yeah, exactly. Man, we're always tweaking and changing and modifying. I'm never content. I'm always, even if I've got a bait that they're biting every cast, I'll still try to figure out.
I do that.
It drives me nuts. But I love that. That's the game to me. It's never good enough. No matter what what I end up, place wise in a tournament, or how well I do on a guide trip, or even just out fun fishing with a Baitman. It's never enough.
Speaking of tournaments, I might put you on the spot here. You won a Costa 2 years ago. You fished a few last year, I think. I don't even follow tournament fishing that much anymore, but are you going to fish any Costa events or anything this year?
I'm not going to fish the I'm not even sure what they're called now.
I think it's the FLW series.
Yeah, but I can't remember the title sponsor. Anyway, the FLW series. It's all changed over duck season, but I'm not going to fish those this year. I've got a commitment to the Triton Owners Tournament here on Kentucky Lake in late May, which actually overlaps the one Costa or the one series tournament at Pickwick. So with my business right now, I'm staying so busy. I don't like traveling. I'd love to do it, but it just doesn't make sense right now. So this year I'm going to fish, a handful of tournaments like I always do. I kind of have to get my feel of tournaments every year, but I'm not aggressively chasing that game. I found it very difficult to guide and fish tournaments because you're always messing one or the other up. And
right.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form purposely going to take a client out on the lake and not take them to where bass live. That's just, I can't do that.
I agree with that.
At the same time, it's like I just spent all week burning everything I have. Now I start fresh on game day, and you can imagine where that goes. So I don't fish a ton, but I am somewhat disappointed that I'm not getting to fish that series there at Pickwick.
I want to fish the Triton Owners again. Unfortunately, my boy Defew, he's got him a Ranger, so I'm out of that.
That might change.
Maybe we can change that because one top 10 felt pretty good. I'd like to get another one.
That's
and
right.
I know he's come some close to winning that thing. He's had like 2 or 3 top threes.
That's a tough tournament to win. I would go on a.
I think it's the hardest tournament on Kentucky Lake to win.
A really thin limb and say that's one of the most difficult tournaments to win on Kentucky Lake. It's every big sticker. I'd rather fish an Elite Series tournament on Kentucky Lake. I'd rather fish an Elite Series tournament as I would at Triton Owners to say that I'm going to win it.
Matt Robertson won last year and second the year before, and in the year me and Jeff did really good. He finished like third.
Yep.
That tournament tailors up for Matt right now with the 3 fish limit because he's in that mindset, hey, we're going to get 3 or 4 bites. But when we get them, they're going to be big.
He's the best at that.
Yes, he is.
I would pay him big money to give me that knowledge, like that confidence of, and hey, man, if I think I can get a big bite, I'll stick with it, but I can't commit like he can.
So Matt's confidence is way up there, and you obviously see that in some of the stuff he puts on the internet. And I always joke with him, that's the pro wrestling in you, but he embellishes it, and he'll tell you he ain't going to go out there and fish for 33rd place. He's going to go win. If he don't, he's going to 0. But just won again.
Okeechobee.
Won
the nation. The Federation Nation.
Come back. He was right there in the top 10, then got to 3rd, and the last day he put the hammer on.
Yep. I think he's catching him on a little swimmer, too.
Yeah, burning on top of the grass. I'm going to get Matt back on a live show or on a podcast, too. He's been burning me up. Man, that dude is a great fisherman, but
he is absolutely. He impressed me last summer. He impressed a lot of us. And Matt and I, we know each other. I'm so busy with my deal, and he's so busy with his. We kind of only get to hang out, and communicate at tournaments. But I'd really like to pick that guy's brain. Like I could sit in a room with him
if you all two were in the same boat, fishing a tournament against someone, they might as well go home.
It would be fun. Yeah. That would be interesting.
But I haven't been in the boat with Matt, but I've talked to him enough. Y'all's styles vary quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. I can see that. Yeah.
But sometimes you put people like that in a boat together.
Yep.
And it's really hard to beat them. Right?
It's a tough duo to get to work, but if you can ever get that ball rolling where you got 2 totally different styles that kind of work together in a weird, crazy way, man, that's the best teams. That's the most dangerous. You look at Ed and his team partner. Oh, my goodness. Just got a new Camus. Drawing a blank right now. On the south end.
I know who you're talking about.
They're exactly the same. Like, they're 2 totally different fishermen. But, man, when they get in the boat together, it's...
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. For as good as me and Jeff always call them together, when they're biting a crankbait, I don't even pick one up.
Right. You don't need to.
I'll pick one up if he picks up a worm or something.
Right.
But he's so good with it. I'll throw a swim bait out there or drag something, and I'll pick off some fish, and sometimes I'd pick off quite a few big fish. But I wanted to be next to that net really quick because I knew if he got them fired up, there was no sense of even me doing anything but netting them, put them in a live well. But it's good to have that mojo with somebody. I go fish with a lot of people and be in the boat, and some people, they're great people, and I enjoy my time, but we don't fish good together.
Right.
And maybe it's because we fish so much the same that if they're not biting what we're doing, we're screwed. And some of it's just I don't know what this person expects or that. So I love that part of tournament fishing is the camaraderie and being able to catch them. But me, I've just kind of got out of the whole draw tournament stuff like that.
Yeah,
I want to catch big ones.
I'm too competitive by nature to not fish tournaments. Like to me, it's just something that I have to have. Like I can't go, without that. I don't know, that feeling, that adrenaline rush. But I have, my kids are getting older. My business is growing. It's getting a lot busier. I feel like here for at least the next few years, you probably won't see me as much on the tournament scene. That could always change, but I feel like I'm going to devote, as much time as I can to my business and my family as well. Me being gone 3 or 4 months out of the year for the waterfowl side, it makes it kind of difficult to jump right back into being a father and then pack truck up and head to Toledo Bend for 2 weeks.
Yeah, before I really knew you, and a lot of people that watch me on YouTube and listen, they know I worked for a company, basically Night and Hell, Commonwealth Productions. It was owned by Pradco. And man, from opening hunting season, because we film more than just deer hunting. Right. From about the end of August to right now, I was gone. Yep. But I was pretty much single. I got to fish in the summer, spring, and all that, but I was gone all that time. Didn't have no kids. Yep. And I'd love to get back into filming deer hunts and all that stuff, but I want to do it at my own deal where I can say, I'm either going to go to Kansas on this deer hunt. Yep. I'm not going to go chase deer all over other states and whatnot. I can kind of pick and choose kind of freelance because I want to be home with my kids. Exactly. Man, it's, if I have one regret, in my adulthood, it's and I feel guilty for even talking about this, really, even mentioning it, but spending time with your kids and really your family as a whole is super important. And I'm one of those, I'm all in or I'm nothing. And when I jumped into this, the guiding scene, I mean, I was head first, and I still am. But like you look back and you reflect, like I was during duck season, and it's like, man, I've worked 300 days this year. Like I haven't had any time to hang out with the kids or do anything. So, kind of going back to what we were saying, I don't think I'll fish as many tournaments this year, but you never know. I get a wild hair on a Thursday and hunt one up somewhere. Yeah, I certainly enjoy it, and I do miss it. It's just, at this point in your life, you're in the same place I am. You kind of have to prioritize and figure out what's important to you and devote what time you have to what you need. Now, I'm not going to lie. My little one to make me want to go out there and go fishing. I have my moments. I love them both to death, but you got to have your own time every now and then. Yep. You're exactly right. Because there's only so much Ryan's toy review and Fortnite and stuff a man can take before I just have to walk outside. That's right. But we'll talk a little bit about fishing, and we'll let you get off here, Jake. I don't know if you paid attention. We've already had a FLW tournament at Sam Rayburn. Yep. That was a pretty good, and Bassmaster starts. We're recording this week? Tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday. Matter of fact, you'll hear another podcast before this. I had trouble getting up there, but by the time this airs, those guys at Lake Harris Chain, Bassmaster, Major League Fishing. They're at Eufaula. I think they start tomorrow. So I'm very interested to see Brian Thrift. Yep. Man, Thrift is either going to absolutely crush them.
Oh, he's going to. It fits his style.
It fits his style. He's going to crush him.
Brian, and I've only spent a little bit of time in person with Brian, but in my business and talking with everyone, I can get a fairly quick assessment of what kind of fisherman you are. There's no question who Thrift is. I'm not saying that at all, but you could tell by his demeanor, by the way he talked about certain things, and he's in a whole different world. I mean, very, very similar to what you and I do, and I don't mean he's on a whole another level, but it's just amazing to watch him do what he does,
yes.
and it's fluid and easy as he makes that look going 100 miles an hour. There's only a handful of guys that I've ever seen that can fish fast, efficiently, and effectively, and like for a purpose.
Right.
Van Dam's one of them. Thrift certainly. And at times, Ike and Ellie can be that way.
Yes.
But you see Ike and Ellie, and not talking. It's funny, you can see when he's on that bubble, he can rock it. I mean, he's right there with Van Dam's Drift, but when the bubble has burst, he's a train wreck. He can't fish that speed and be efficient, and that hurts him.
Yeah, and Gerald Swindle's a great fisherman. He covers a lot of water, but I do think the format MLF hurt Gerald a little bit because he wanted, as fast as he fished, he still fished for the big bite.
Yep, exactly. And Brian is one of those that his mentality and kind of where I was going with this is, just by talking to him, you can tell he's like, I'm going to catch, a handful of good ones every day. So I'm just going to go fishing the way that I want to go fish and how I know I can catch them. And I'm going to run into the right bites, but I'm also going to get like 15 to 30 just keeper bites along the way. And that's,
So I believe this year, too, they
changed
Major League Fishing, the minimum. Depending on lake, I think they're starting out with the 2-pound minimum, which really, well, on Kentucky Lake, that'd be a 15-incher.
Yeah, right.
And that's a keeper bass.
That's it. I didn't know that. I'm out of the loop. That'll be interesting. But yeah, you need to watch out for Thrift. I tell you, somebody that's shocked, not just myself, but everybody, is Van Dam. I really thought that this would fit his style as fast as he can cover water. You show up to a lake, generally speaking, whoever covers the most water obviously has the most probable chance of running into him. I really thought he would have some bad stumbles and have some tournaments where he just fell off the bandwagon, but I really felt like Van Dam would have more tournaments where he would just blow it out, because that's just kind of the way he is. You know, when he gets around a group of fish, he can.
Yeah, there's several guys that I'm not going to say I was disappointed with, and it was the first year, and I always tell people this: what you're seeing on the Bass Pro Tour is not the same thing on the Major League, circuit events or whatnot.
Right.
You're fishing 40 guys one day and 40 guys the other. You're used to fishing 10 or 12, and so when you add more guys on there, some of these guys are probably wanting to run and gun, but then you got more boats that are, hey, I wanted to be there, vice versa. Puts a little bit more pressure on you too if you've only got 10 or 11 guys to worry about versus 40.
Yep. Exactly.
But they're going to some good lakes. I think Lake Fork, I'd like to see them put like a 5-pound minimum on it.
Really?
They're going to Fork at the end of March.
Yeah. It's going to be wicked.
If you're a sight fisherman and your name's Kelly Jordan, you could probably rack up some giant weights.
Yeah. It's going to be wicked. I mean, that's.
And speaking of FLW series, another Bethel University guy is on a roll. Cody Huff. You know Cody?
I do. I know Cody real well. Man, I'm super pumped for him. He's a great fisherman, super good dude. Get the shirt off his back for you. And he's really, really jumping on the scene. He's kind of on one of those bubbles right now. It seems like really the last year and a half. He's been on that bubble and he's fishing good. He's making good decisions. The biggest thing with Cody to me is he's very humble. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think he's much like Cole Floyd. He's going to go somewhere with it. He'll make a career.
I think Cole's going to do fine this year. I didn't check out at Rayburn. I think he was just kind of middle. He was middle of the pack,
like 55th or somewhere in there.
That was a pretty tough tournament. A lot of guys don't realize it.
Yeah, that was and I couldn't follow it as much as I normally do just because of the duck season, but. What I understood, it was a lot different. It's set up much different than what a typical Rayburn would. So I think it's going to take a little time to get adjusted, but man, he's going to settle in there, and he's honestly with hundreds and hundreds of different people I've been in the boat with. Floyd is the most naturally gifted people I've ever met.
I've heard that from multiple people that I trust.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how to put it into words. I mean, that guy could just simply get a big bite, and it's almost like he doesn't even, and I don't want him to hear this and like snarl at it, but it's almost like he doesn't even have to work at it. You know, like some people,
right.
it just comes to them. Like it's just,
they
don't even have to really work at it.
It was something me and Pete Robbins were talking about on a previous podcast. He brought up Kelly Jordan, and back in the day, he thought he'd be the next Van Dam.
Yeah.
He just had that knack for making it look easy to catch big fish.
Exactly.
And this ain't a knock at Kelly. He's one of my best friends in the industry, but he kind of, I don't know if he got burned out or what, or the lakes changed they were going to. Yeah. He kind of lost his momentum on that. He would always seem to catch a big one, but putting those strings of big limits kind of went away.
Yeah.
And I think that hurts him a little bit in the MLF because he'll tell you he's going to fish for the biggest ones. He don't care if he's putting 5 or 30. Yep. And you see when he did like Jordan, he put like 25 on weighing near 100 pounds.
Exactly. And in saying that about Floyd, he works super hard at it. He's not one of those, typically, and you see this in all sports, typically someone that is as naturally gifted or talented as he is.
They don't practice a lot.
They don't work at it. They've never had to, so they don't know how to.
I always said if Ken Griffey Jr. practiced as hard as he played, he would have shattered
everything out there. And Floyd, man, I've seen him put an 80 or 90 hour week on the water for no reason at all other than he just wants to be out there and learn. I mean, that's, he has a very similar mindset. It's not so much about the catching, it's more the hunt. And it's fun for us to get together and grill out and talk about the lake and how things are changing, and it's neat to to share those, whether it's an experience we had last week or a funny story from 2 years ago. It's just fun to get together with somebody like that, and somebody that's got that ability and that talent, just to be bouncing ideas back and forth. Mm-hmm. It's super helpful.
You kind of go back to what we talked about at the first of the podcast. When I was in high school, they make fun of your ass brought a bass boat to school because it happened to me quite a bit.
Yep.
Now you bring a bass boat to school, people know what's up.
Yep.
And you went to Bethel, fished for Bethel. You and good friends of ours, Randall Morris.
Yep.
Made that big spoon famous there on Pickwick. What is it about Bethel that it keeps pumping out good fishermen after good fishermen? Are they? I don't know how college fishing works. Do they recruit people, or is it just that it's a great location where you can go fish Pickwick, Kentucky Lake, all these Middle Tennessee lakes? It's just good access.
You couldn't have said it any better. It's twofold. One, they've got a really good recruitment program there, but also on the flip side, people just want to come to Bethel to fish. It's a great location. It's a great school. They offer, some things there that you might not have offered, at other colleges or universities. It's kind of twofold, and it really brings the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Every year I always talk to Gary Mason, the coach there, and it's fun to listen to him, his excitement every spring and fall when the new people start rolling in, and you get to see, what kind of new talent they're going to have in the coming years. Kentucky Lake is a fantastic lake to learn and evolve as a fisherman on. It's so big and expansive. What's going on the southern end, like the New Johnsonville area, is oftentimes not what's going on at the dam or on the northern end of the lake. So,
and then you got Barkley too.
You got Barkley in the mix. So, and a lot of the small, you got Gibson, 1,000 acre. You got all the beach lakes. You got Pickwick, 2 hours. It's such a vast.
It's very diverse.
Yeah, a diverse area that you can really hone your skills in. One day you can go throw topwater on bars. The next day you can learn how to skip a jig under boat docks. And you can catch them both ways. So. And
I'll tell you, Kentucky Lake's not dead, regardless of what people said. And I was bad about it. Got really frustrated a couple years ago. I was more frustrated at the lack of government involvement, being proactive. Now with Wade White over at Lyon County and the carp deal, I feel are being very proactive. But Kentucky Lake is not dead. Dude, I have seen some big fish come out of the lake in the last couple of weeks, and I've seen a lot of good limits of fish.
Yep, absolutely. I don't think that they're, the population density is as big as it was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even 4 or 5 years ago. You can't expect that. I mean, we had a period there where I've never seen anything like that.
Without a doubt, Kentucky Lake was the best lake in the country, I'll say, from 2012 to 2014.
Yep, maybe even on into 15 or 16. I mean,
the last year of Bass Fest.
Yep.
And the year Edwin won was as good as you'll ever see a lake.
Exactly. So you can't, and even then, I remember fishing, and it'd be like, man, there's no way it can stay this good for this long. But, in saying that, there's still a ton of fish in the lake, and to be honest with you, we've got more big ones. The average size is a lot better than what it was. We might go out and catch 70 or 100 back then, but you'd have a lot of 1.5 to 2.5 pounders.
People seem to kind of forget about that.
Yeah, I mean, you had to weed through a ton to catch a good bag. Now it's just essentially all you've done is just taken out all those little ones. You're still getting a handful of big bites every day, and boy, when you land on the right little, whether it's a pattern or the location or the bait, whatever it may be, boy, you can make yourself look real good out there. I had some really, really good days last year.
I tell you what's really turned on is the smallmouth.
It has.
I used to guide for them at night. I was, late teens, early 20s. And it was just a, black spinnerbait deal. And I would run points and some old stump rows at night. And you'd have a night, and man, you might get into them. You'd catch 20 or 30. But for the most part, you're fishing for 5 or 6 bites. But I could always catch about 14 to 17 pounds.
Yep.
And one of those fish might be 4 or 5 pounds. But now, man, especially this time of year, you look at the sacks coming in. These guys are weighing 23, 25 pounds, and they got 4 smallmouths in the bag.
Yep. That's some magnums.
I really think Kentucky Lake is very underrated for smallmouth fishing.
Oh, it is. It is. And generally what you'll see as far as that is concerned, when you have a large population of largemouth, the smallmouth population seems to kind of decrease, and vice versa. When you see a decline in the largemouth population, you see an increase in or an incline in the smallmouth, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. We're kind of on the leading edge of the smallmouth really taking a hold.
Yeah, in that late 90s, you notice who was winning it. Everything.
Oh yeah. Oh man, the early 2000s.
Rodney Tidwell and Schroeder's and smallmouth guys.
Yep.
Guys
the late 98 through 05 was the most unbelievable smallmouth fishing when the conditions were right. Again, the smallmouth are fairly fickle. When the conditions set up right, it was the most unbelievable experience you've ever seen. In 2006, it was like one didn't exist anymore. Right. I mean, it was unbelievable how quickly it went from the best I've ever seen it to almost the worst.
Yeah, even if, I still fish at night quite a bit there. It kind of switched to all of a sudden largemouth moved into my smallmouth spots. And I couldn't find
now
it.
It's like last year when I went a handful of times, just kind of fun fishing. It was like 50-50, smallmouth and largemouth. But I didn't, and again, I'm night fish just to kind of have fun. And, July and August when it's so hot during the day, it's fun to go out and do that. But I was really surprised at the number of fish you could catch at night versus what you could catch in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm still, I wanted to get more experience or more time under that to get a better grasp on what was happening, but it was really interesting. You could go out and get 2 to 5 bites a day during the daylight hours and go out and catch 30 at night. I mean, it was just...
What would really blow your mind is when you get in a bow fishing boat.
Oh,
you go out there up shallow at night and you're blowing by 4 and 5 pounders.
Yep, everywhere.
And, you can't shoot them, obviously, but you let a guy know where they are and come back to the next night.
Exactly.
And I've been out there this time of year, or maybe even later, more 1st of March. It's amazing how many big females are up there in a foot of water.
Yep.
And they're holding tight to a stump or something like that you can't get a bass boat to.
Right.
Whereas, a lot of times these bow fishing boats, you got a fan motor or something like that. You can get up on these real shallow flats and seen a really big fish in the back of Ginger 2 years ago that was in about 8 inches of water. Oof. Matter of fact, I drew back on it. I thought it was a buffalo until she turned on her side. I'm like, holy smokes. I've seen some 7s and 8s, and this was a giant. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And the guy I'm with said, yeah, I see 2 or 3 of those, you know, a night. Yeah. You know, if I'm out all night. Yeah. I'm like, wow.
Isn't that amazing? I saw a big one on a bed this past spring, that like to drove me nuts. I mean, you know, I'm all into sight fishing because we've never really been able to do it here very much.
Right.
And so anytime I see one on a bed, I try to capitalize. I would say anywhere in my game, sight fishing would be. I'm fairly knowledgeable about it. I just don't have a lot of time on the water doing it, and so I really, when I find one, I'll devote the whole day. That's just what I'm into. But
I'm gonna get totally out of bass fishing really quick. Something we got to see was some giant freaking red ear.
We did.
Now, there's a lot of guys that are investing good money in their electronics and everything. They don't give a crap about bass fishing.
Yep.
But it's saying this side imaging and the live scope has really changed the game for the crappie fishermen and the pan fishermen as well. Now, I know that's something you want to take me out and say, dude, I got to take you out and show you how to do this.
It's close to cheating as you can get. I mean, the red ear and brim fishing in May, when they start spawning and forming their beds, it's as easy as you can get. I mean, once you get your electronics set up and you understand what you're looking for, it's as simple as making a pass through a pocket and turn around, get you a bucket of crickets and a big cooler, because you're gonna need it. On the crappie side, I think it's interesting to see all of the new people that are getting involved, very similar to, for the duck hunters out there, when the Robo came out, it got a lot more people involved in duck hunting that otherwise wouldn't have, because it just got so much easier there. The live scope has done that to a degree, and it's still catching on, but man, to be able to pull up to one of your brush piles or a piece of standing timber, whatever it may be, instead of getting 18 rods out and spider rigging and putting 72 minnows on there, it takes 30 minutes to get all set up and 5 minutes to figure out if they're in there or not. Here, you just throw your trolling motor down, pan it around. If there's a few there, you stop and fish for them. If you don't, you roll to the next one. And I'll tell you, and I'm giving a big deal away here, but what the crappie guys have figured out, prior to not having Garmin, they didn't understand how sensitive the big ones were to the boat. So all these spider riggers and these guys that are, single poling, you're catching a ton, but you don't catch a lot of those 2.5 to 3 pound crappie. It's not necessarily that there's not there. It's just once you get a boat 5 feet over their head, they know something's up. So these guys have really started casting for them, and it's neat. It's like sight fishing, but you're looking at them on your depth finder. I mean, you troll up to a stump or a brush pile, whatever it may be, and if there's 3 down there, you can sit there till you catch all 3 of them. I mean, I had a friend of mine, Michael Wasden, we all call him Gator, good friend of mine down there in Paris, and he went out this past Saturday and said he had one big crappie on a stump that he tied 4 or 5 different color jigs on and different weights, and the crappie would come up there and look at it and then swim back down to the stump, and he never could get it to commit, so he would keep changing different things. It was like 5 or 6 different changes in immediately as soon as it got down there. He caught it, and it was like a 2 1/4, one of the biggest ones of the day. So it's really neat to see this technology and how it's making us adapt and change with it. And there's going to be some big things happening in the crappie world here in the next few years. Now that, typically the crappie side, it's a little more on the older age group, which are kind of less involved in the technology, but even they're jumping on. I mean, there's no option at this point.
It's kind of funny. My father-in-law, he's early mid-50s, and he was one of the first guys I knew had to touch Lowrance.
Yep.
And he don't even really fish anymore. And he's like, I think I'll sell my boat. And I'm like, yeah. And then wait till you get in a boat with someone that's got that Garmin Panoptics, and you'll have one right up there. But, dude, we have been on here for an hour and 20 minutes, Jake. We got to get in the bait room and tinker with some things. So if someone wants to get a hold of you, best way, what's your email address?
Yeah, shoot me an email at jlawrence JLAWRENCE@gmail.com. That's JLAWRENCE outdoors247@gmail.com.
And I'll link that in the description of the video. And, Jake, I look forward to getting in the boat with you a bunch this year. I don't have a boat, so I'm going to have to lean on you. Hopefully they don't work me to death this year, and I can get out there. So get some Fridays open. Maybe I can use a little bit of vacation time. We can make some trips down to Pickwick or wherever.
Man, that sounds awesome. I tell you what, if everybody will, Baxter and I are working on a few ideas. We have a few things that we're looking into doing this spring and this summer.
And we want your help.
We want your help, and we want to know what you're interested in and what you want to see us do. We've with our schedules, it's kind of hard for us to get together. So when we do, if we can knock out a few different things, give us some ideas to run with, we'd love that. So. Certainly comment, and if you've got any questions, get in touch with Baitman. He'll be more than happy to help as much as I am, and we're looking forward to what's going to take place this spring and on into the summer. And
yeah, I like talking about baits, and I know y'all like it when I do my bait videos, but I like to do some different stuff, and hopefully I'm going to grow the channel. But Jake's a good guy, and I've known him for years. I want him to grow his business as well, and podcast, unfortunately, can't see everything. But I've got some good ideas and stuff, but I really want y'all's help. So leave a comment of, is there a technique or is there some electronic stuff? Do you want quick guides on your depth finder, stuff like that? And we'll go try to knock it out. I can't promise y'all a bunch, but we can try to get together once a month and see if we can knock out some stuff from the viewers. But, Jake, I appreciate you coming over to the house here and knocking out this podcast with me.
I appreciate you having me.